Coach Cam fam, we're back to talk about UFC 308 and all the amazing things that happened and all the mental skills that go around when an athlete says something that they're going to do and it actually coming to fruition. A lot of times we see when it doesn't or the opposite things happen, and there's actually a lot of mental factors that go into it. Now, why do we need to know this? Because it's going to affect exactly how you see your goals happening for yourself and everything else that's going to take place. So let's talk about the power of predictions. At UFC 308, the two athletes that were in the main card that won their fights, both Khamzat Chimaev and Ilia Topuria, are advocates for having what they say is going to happen actually play out in their fights. Now, there's a lot of different elements that go into this, but the two main mental skills are both focus and resiliency. Now, in this case, for high-performing athletes, there's a little bit more that goes into them, so let's define each one. Focus, yes, means putting attention and energy in what the desired outcome is, but more than that, it's actually eliminating distractions so that if anything else comes in your way, you're not distracted or your focus doesn't change automatically right when you have the opportunity for it to change. You stay to your course. For resiliency, yes, it means strength over time when it's tested for the person themselves, but also the fact that they're able to stay focused or keep their focus on their game plan when something might happen when it's not what they thought exactly would play out. So not getting distracted again in the sense of, oh, this is not working out for me, so I'm worried, but keeping that energy or that strength in the plan is going to work. So let's dive into exactly how each one of these fighters plays it out. So first, let's cover the Wolf. Khamzat Chimaev is one of the best, most exciting fighters in the UFC and embodies saying what's going to happen perfectly. One of his most famous quotes is, "I will fight anybody so I can get money and go home." Now, his focus is oriented around that statement or those mantras to where if anybody says anything else to try and distract him from that, he doesn't even give it any attention. So in the fight itself, he's focused on doing that exact thing, putting the pressure on from the very get-go and eliminating all other distractors. It doesn't matter how long the fight goes. It doesn't matter who's in front of him. The fact of the matter is he will go and perform those exact things. Now let's move over to resilience. Khamzat is notorious for being a tough fighter even when he's tested. In this case though, it was tested even more with his son having a medical procedure happen during fight week, which for a lot of athletes might be a distracting point to make them feel down or take their mind out of having to perform. Now for him though, it gave him even more strength to where he was more dialed and focused in the moment, to where when Robert Whittaker was countering or defending himself during the fight, Khamzat actually kept pushing and would just reset what his next move would be, even when he was being defended. So he didn't negate or didn't change the game plan just because his first attempt did not work. He moved right into another sequence, which then inevitably gave him the win. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a coach on the US national karate team and also a mental strength coach for all combat athletes. I was on the Olympic program for over 15 years and an alternate for the 2020 Olympic Games. In addition to that, I've been to the World Games with a bronze medal and the Pan American Games with a gold medal. So competing and knowing what goes into high-level competition is what I've studied, what I've felt, and what I've done for my whole life, and now we see it all the time within these high-level athletes. And now for the champ. Ilia is a great champ and someone I also love watching, even though I discovered him recently. Now his focus is embedded in acting like what you want to be. He's someone that wants to be the champion, so he acts like the champion, and you see it in his attitude specifically. He's not someone that gets caught up in the highs and lows of competition. He's there, he's present, and he's stoic. So he knows himself so well that he's not gonna get pulled into other situations or other distractors, but his focus is ingrained in him acting and behaving like what he thinks the champion should be. And thus, he never gets distracted, he stays focused and does all the necessary things to be a champion. And I love this part about him. Now, the point of resilience for Ilia is amazing in this one specific thing. Now, athletes across the board will always say, hey, I want this thing to happen, or I know this thing is going to happen about their performance. But when the game plan gets tested even a little bit, you know an athlete does not have true confidence when right there, they start doubting themselves. Ilia is the exact opposite. So his resilience with fighting Max Holloway, the BMF belt holder before this fight, is at the beginning, he's getting pieced up, he's getting worked. Now, round one could have gone either way with the takedown that Ilia had, but Max is still working him giving a lot of damage, and low-key he was winning the fight until this point, or had the potential to win the fight until this point, when Ilya stuck to the game plan, did not change. His confidence did not waver, and you can see that by the pressure he was applying throughout the whole fight. And he was saying that he's going to be the first person to knock Max Holloway out, and inevitably did that with an amazing performance. In some cases, some people saying a comeback victory. For me, I was a fan of how he held himself consistent. Even when the game plan was working against him or wasn't exactly what he wanted, he stayed consistent and resilient, did not waver what his plan was at all, and inevitably led to him having what he said was going to happen come true. Now, speaking of Max, I want to make it very clear that these 2 points, or these 2 mental skills, help in predicting what you want to have happen, but bad luck happens to all of us. Max actually lost this fight and had one of the worst things that could happen to him happen. He had a record that's going against him be broken with him being knocked out. But I do want to say that the way he carries himself, both in winning and losing, shows exactly why these 2 points are so important. Now, for Max's resilience, it's seen in how he approached the loss and what's going to happen next. A lot of the times, yeah, I want the resiliency to be in the fight or everything leading up to the fight. But athletes and coaches don't talk about what's going to happen after the fight, especially if you lose and it doesn't go in your way. Now, his approach was, I'm gonna go talk to my team, the people that he trusts, and we're gonna come up with a game plan that is best fit to where I could be back to action as soon as possible. Now, a not resilient fighter or a not strong athlete would not be looking at how they can improve and get back to action as soon as possible. They'd be looking to give up or maybe take time off or move away from everything that's pressure oriented. But for him, he was resilient enough to say, this is my approach, even when I lose, and I'm going to take those steps going forward. So the power of predictions can go both ways. The biggest concept to all of this, though, is not letting doubt creep into your mind when you start predicting something. When you want to have something happen, a lot of times we follow it with words or sentences or phrases or actions that are going to go in that direction of what we want, especially if it's a lofty goal. But doubting yourself will make sure that it doesn't happen. So having focus and staying truly focused on what that thing is and everything that can go into making that thing happen is extremely important. But along the way, staying resilient and not letting a small setback or anything that could potentially distract you offset you to where you start doubting yourself will allow for you to be the most successful. With that said, on this channel, we're trying to help athletes in all different realms with all the skills they need to be successful. So please like, subscribe, share, drop a comment on anything else you want me to cover as far as mental skills go. Until next time, we'll talk soon.